Good afternoon, folks. You have made it to another Friday. Please give yourself a massive pat on the back. I always imagine that at this point there's like a lot of people on trains and buses and stuff actually giving themselves pats on the back and getting really weird looks from fellow passengers. But first of all, if you like what I do, please take a moment to head over to the Patreon and essentially help me get towards my £750 a month target. If you can do that, I can stop relying on ad revenue on this channel and start taking it a bit more seriously with my time, to be honest with you, because work is getting more and more busy as the months go on. Aside from that, if you want to help me out a little bit more, head over to Composite Games if you're going to get any hobby stuff and enter in the promo code Northern Exile down below, which will give you a 5% off at checkout, and you already get 20% off anyway, which can mean you can get 25% off of your next order. Bosh. Also, please try and make sure that we're still supporting the goods merchant over in the US. He does some amazing stuff, and I'm about to order some stuff over the next week or so with them, so I can get a little video ready for you where you can see in my hand what things look like when you order from there, because I think that Granite die shaker is something that I really, really, really need. So, moving on, I have been a little bit ill this week. It really sucks when illness gets in the way of your plans, man, because I was planning on doing so much running this week, and I did. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I went running, and Wednesday night, I felt, like, pumped. Like, I looked at myself in the mirror, I've slimmed down a lot, you know, I'm looking really good, and I was like, great, this is going to be so good. I'm going to go see a friend in the UK this weekend. It's his birthday, so I thought, yeah, I want to get extra slim, want to hammer it this week, so I feel really good when we go out. And Wednesday night, came down with a cold. Tested, not COVID. Came down with a cold in fucking July. You know, in July. Can you Adam and Eve it? In July, I have a cold. But anyway, it is what it is, I suppose. You've got to go with it. So, moving on, we have a few hobby nightmares today. Oh, a bit of housekeeping before we go anywhere. A few people on the Patreon have asked me to revisit the Fireside Rants podcast, of which I would be very, very, very happy to do. And so, over the next couple of weeks, I'm planning on getting together the first couple of podcasts will be just me. Maybe even the first one will be just me. But I'm having guests. So, I will be having guests on the podcast. And generally, we're going to be doing hobbyists who have interesting stories would be a thing that you know, we're going to be covering. So we've got anything from, you know, war veterans who are hobbyists. We've got, you know, company CEOs who are hobbyists. We have a doctor who's a hobbyist. We have an EMT who's a hobbyist. So we'll be talking to a lot of people from across the broad spectrum of life who are also into Warhammer or any sort of other tabletop wargaming thing. And we'll be going over what they like about the hobby, what they don't like about the hobby, and what their lives are generally like. So, if you're interested in that, then, you know, stay tuned, because the first few will be just me talking about life and the universe and everything, and then we'll be going into other things with other people. So, anyway, first hobby nightmare. By the way, if I take a quick break for a couple of seconds every now and again, because my voice is going at the moment, and I'm trying to make sure that it's there for the weekend. So, the things I do for you, you know? God damn it. Questing Spud says, "Hi North, hope you're doing well." I'm doing reasonably well, Spud, thank you very much. Yes. If you have any Lemsip, though, pass it to me. "My friend is running a D&D campaign with his brother, our school friend, and me. His brother is kind of a distractible prick, but I'll talk about that another time. My friend, the DM, let's call him Shorty, and I are super close. The character I'm playing is a changeling, paladin/rogue. Typical backstory. The twist is that all his life my character has been hunted by a revenant. The plot twists is that said revenant is my character's father." Okay, kind of like a Luke Skywalker kind of thing. "Shorty really likes this backstory and wants to focus on my character for the next few sessions. That's nice to hear, I guess, but this is D&D. Well, the third player is a power gamer and doesn't give much thought into role-playing, or his character, or the party members. Shorty's brother is the youngest and is used to getting what he wants, so naturally Shorty's brother, let's call him Shortest, starts whining about all the attention I'm getting. Well, half the time Shortest doesn't even pay attention to the game, so Shorty doesn't see the point in giving him attention. So, 90% of sessions end up becoming waiting for shortest to either leave or stop whining. The power gamer of our group gets pissed at this and just wants to play. We haven't played since last summer. I don't know if this is horror story or a cry for help. What would you do? Okay, so in all honesty, man, you guys seem pretty young, and this is a natural part of the hobby process, I'm afraid. So natural, in fact, that you'll probably get more groups like this as you go on in life. But yeah, this is a absolutely natural part of the hobby process. You're going to get these groups. And the hobby, when you start out, is about redefining or defining what you're happy with and what you want to go with and what you don't want to go with in terms of acceptable behaviours at the tabletop. So I think you're going about it the right way. What you're going through is growing pains in the hobby. These are completely natural. You're going to come across people that you don't want to play with. You're going to come across people that you want to play with. Collect those people like Pokemon, you know? All those people that you like playing with, collect them. Talk to them. Nurture them. Make sure when you are about to run a campaign, or you know of a campaign that's about to be run, you get those people invited to your tabletop. So you can, you know, get a group of your own ready. It takes years. And sometimes people stumble into it very quickly. Sometimes people take a long time to get used to it. But yeah, it's going to take a little while. I would stick it out and get all the experiences from that hobby group that you can. And remember, when you're that age, let's be honest, you're practicing in the hobby, right? Because this is a lifelong hobby. And sometimes people, when they're very young, they tend to think that life is going to be very short, or, you know, like, it's so far away, I'm probably not going to be in the hobby for the rest of my life. Trust me, mate, you probably will be. So you're going to have some amazing stories going forward from the hobby. Best thing to do is to collate people that you really like, as in the DM in this story. Sounds like a really nice guy. Collect people like that, and discard the rest. Sounds harsh, but is what it is, right? So, Keramori says, he's back, ladies and gentlemen. We've got another Keramori story. Keramori says, I got another for you. Arguing with the wife, who's right here. Oh, shit. Sorry about that, mate. She's looking over your shoulder while she's listening to this. Not good. Well, let's be real. We're arguing if I was wrong in what I did years ago. Settle this for us, alright? Long ago, I went on a date with a chick after a long dry spell. Despite the date being an hour out, I was psyched. Got ready, got there, date was going well, normal, nothing crazy, until she said something magical. She told me she played my favourite game of all time, Left 4 Dead. I can't even accurately express how high my heart soared when I heard this. Dude, are you telling your wife this? No wonder she's pissed. Yeah, I met a better one, you know, years ago, but then, you know, that went away, so sort of settled for you, I suppose, you know, that's what it is. Not only did she play, this girl was talking mad smack about her skills, telling me most players suck. She could kick my ass, everything. Okay, alright. See, normally when a lady says that, they're overcompensating. They want you to respect them for having a role in your hobby. Which, you know, what people don't tend to get when ladies say shit like that is that we respect you just for being there. You don't even need to be good at it, you know? But anyway, I wrapped up this date so fast because we made plans to play later that night. Said goodbye, no time to make out, and dropped her off. Dude, you're the biggest fucking nerd I've ever come across in my entire life. What the hell is wrong with you? A date goes really well, and you don't even go for a make-out at the end, or even during. By the way, never, if the date is going well, never wait to the end of the date to make out with somebody. My favourite thing to do is if we're leaving a bar and we're on our own, so it's not too busy, I'll turn around, I'll lead out the bar, and I'll turn around and walk straight into her as she's coming out, and just pick her up. It's never not worked. Do you know what I mean? Like it's always worked. Like, they always go for it. If the date's going well. If it's going okay, I would never do it. Only if it's going really, really well, and I'm like, it's obvious this girl really likes me, I really like this girl back, that's when I'll do shit like that. But the 3 or 4 times I've done it, it's always worked. Like, leave the bar, you know, and if you can, be holding hands like you're leading her out, right? But leave the bar, turn around, and then just have her just walk into you, like gently, not just like slapping into you, but like you walk into your arms, sort of a thing. The amount of like I've had 1 or 2 of those girls I've actually jumped in and I've actually swung them out of the bar. It's been like just like a cool little moment, sort of a thing. But like yeah, it's a cool thing to do. Like it's a good way to get that first kiss out the way. Not when you're talking like me right now, but you know what I mean. Not when you got a cold. But yeah, dude, you're such a nerd. Like well, as soon as you heard that, you were like, oh, I'll show you. You like throw her into your car, drive her home, kick her out. I'll see you in 5 minutes. And then you drive back to your house and get the little controller in your hand. Oh my god. Alright. Drove an hour back, and then I play Left 4 Dead for like 2 hours to hone my skills in. You know, got to show that alpha worthiness by no-scoping people, so she knows she isn't about to get into a relationship with some scrub. Well, she's not, is she? Because you dropped her off. She's probably having a good time before you went and nerded out. Then it hits 8 PM. Showtime. I add her to Steam. We start at No Mercy. Easy stuff. Yo, this chick couldn't get past the first level. The first level. So right before the end of the map, we, the team, shoot her right before the safe room and shut the door on her face, letting the zombies clean up the biggest disappointment in my life. You're so lucky you're married. Honestly. You're so lucky you're married. Okay. He says, look, man, before you judge me, I'm a reasonable guy. Yeah, you sound like it, yeah. Sarcasm. I don't expect a pro player. She doesn't even have to be decent at the game. But No Mercy, really, after all that talk? She lied to me. Not like she wore a Wonder Bra like, or a lie, or something small like that. No, not even something like cheating. This was the next level deception. Dude, is this satire? Is this satire? You're saying this is worse than cheating? I was well within my right to terminate that contract immediately, but apparently I wasn't nice about it, so you decide. I know my wife won't play video games with me after knowing that story. Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder why. Because she'd probably get divorced. So, you know where I'm going to come down on, man. I'm sorry, but like, this is do you know when geeks and nerds complain about not getting laid? Yeah, this is why. This is why you don't get laid. Is because what that girl is doing there, I wouldn't even say it's lying. The fact she thinks that the fact that she even plays Left 4 Dead means that, you know, she really that she's good at it. You know what I mean? This is obviously a girl who's played it on her own. You know, thinks that she's good at it, and hasn't been exposed to people who, like you, who play the game constantly and just, like, you know, get honing to a ridiculous level of skill. Yeah? So when she's mentioned she plays Left 4 Dead, and she sees your eyes light up, and she likes you, she then starts talking about the game, and her passion then starts coming out. She says, oh yeah, I'm really good at it, I've done these levels, and I'm blah blah, and you know, I've got really good skills in it. You know, most players suck on the game because, you know, when I play with them, they're not very good. You're obviously, Karamori, in the top 1 percentile or whatever of that game, right? You know? I mean, I know No Mercy's no trick, but you know what I mean. You know, you're doing very well. You know exactly what to do when she was pissing you off, is that you shot her and left her for dead there. I just think that she got overexcited. The fact that you got excited that she was into gaming, right? And she obviously thinks that she's pretty good. And the right way to do this would have been to, like, not rush home and tell her we're going to play immediately right now. That's some next level nerd behaviour. And I've had people talk to me about shit like that before, where they've gone, you know, I was dating a girl for a few weeks, and she said that she was into 40k, so we're talking to a 40k tournament. And, you know, I was like, come on, dude, you can't just, like, do that. You can't, like, somebody who's casual in the gaming sphere, you're going to take them and drop them into your nerd-specific, ultra-elite squad and just, you know, immediately assume that she's going to sink or swim. And that's how you base your relationships off of. That's kind of silly, dude. Like, you know, the right way to approach this would have been, right, you can beat me on Left 4 Dead. Well, okay, cool. Tell you what, if you want to go on a second date, then we'll do that after the second date. But right now, I'm really liking getting to know you. You say that to a dude after the way the date's going, you're getting laid. You're getting laid. Like, if you can just go, hey, you know, listen, if we do a second date, then, or if you're feeling a bit cheeky, say, hey, okay, well, if you earn a second date, right? Hey, if you earn a second date, then, you know, we can play some Left 4 Dead after that date, and we'll test it, see how good your skills are, and then take a drink if you've got a drink in front of you. You know what I mean? Just say simple shit like that. And you've got a second date. This girl seemed really cool. And you've just, you know, to compare it to cheating as well. I mean, you say it's not like she wore a Wonder Bra lie or anything, which is small, or something like that. Not even something like cheating, which is very large. This was some next level deception. No, it's not, dude. No, it's not. No, she's excited that she plays the same games as you. And so she starts talking about her skill, because she probably thinks she's really good. I don't think this is deception. I think this is self-deception, maybe. But I think that she actually thinks she's really good, because she's not been exposed to guys like you before. You know? What I will say is, your wife is completely right. I know you thought I'd come down on your side, because I'm very, like, you know, male this. But no, your wife's completely in the right. You're a douche. And don't do this again. If you're ever single, don't do this again. And if you do have a wife, hold on to her with both hands right now. Don't let her leave, right? Because somebody like this going back into the dating circle right now, you'll be single until you are like 95 years of age. So just hold on to your wife, man. Just be grateful for what you got. Because yeah, this was some next level nerdy shit right here. This is why nerds don't get laid. If you want to know why you got a bad rep, this is why. Right, so, if you're ever single again, God hope not, I hope not, but if you ever are again, don't do shit like this, dude. Play the game. She's playing the game with you, she's flirting with you. Play the fucking game. This is the typical, you know... Oh, anyway, I'm moving on, it's depressing. I don't like it when a woman gives a man a layup and he ends up falling off the mound. It's annoying. Anyway. Next story is by somebody called Steve. I love it. There's somebody called Steve, you know. Hi North. Following your appeal for more hobby nightmares, I thought I'd send you my own humble tale. As things happened, it was not much of a nightmare, but you'll see that things could have gone very badly. Okay? The following events take place during the credit crunch. My hours at work had been reduced drastically, and my income reduced with them. Having been a 40k player since the late 1980s, I thought that I'd happily be well, in the late 1980s when it started. It started the year I was born, so good on you, man. Been there from the start. I thought that I'd apply for a part-time job at my local games workshop to supplement my income, and signed up for a recruitment day in the store. This recruitment day took place on an ordinary weekday, and the store was still open for people to come in to buy products, and more significantly, to this increasingly long-winded tale, to paint their models using store-provided paints. Very nice. They don't do that anymore. I did once get told off for like lending out store paints, because if I was using them, if somebody said, I need a blue. Like, well, will this blue do? I'm using it. Yeah, okay. They can use my paint. It's no problem. On that day, one staff member happened to notice that a man at the painting table had gathered up several pots of paint of the same colour, each of which was only partially full, and was pouring paint from one into another, so that he created some full pots and some completely empty ones. Okay. The empty pots he returned to the case that the store paints were kept in, while the full ones he was putting in his bag. What? That's like the most overblown way of stealing that I've ever... Just steal them. Just put them in your bag. Why you... Anyway. The staff member, of course, alerted the manager to this, and the pair of them confronted the man, with the store manager insisting that he opened his bag to display what he had inside of it. The man obviously had no choice but to comply, and when opened his bag, It did indeed contain several pots of paint that belonged to the store, but it is what else the man had in his bag that sets this apart from a tale of minor shoplifting. He had a very large knife. The sort of knife a 40k fan would expect to have made on Katajan etched on the side. As far as I know, no member of that store had ever been physically attacked, but the manager had a strategy for dealing with anybody who might try, telling his staff that when confronting people who could become violent, they should keep some basing sand in their hand that they could throw into an assailant's face. And with this in mind, he signalled for the other staff member to go and grab some sand. This other staff member obviously misunderstood the signal though, and instead of grabbing a handful of sand with which to temporarily blind a man wielding a knife, he picked up an entire sack of sand, something that I suppose you could deliver a good beating with, but not much good for a distraction. Luckily, the man did not actually grab his knife, or even threaten to use it, so no beating with a sack of sand was necessary. Instead, when the manager demanded an explanation for why the man had such a knife with him, he replied with the excuse that he was going to do some gardening tomorrow. Jesus. This may now seem like an anticlimax to the story, but it ends with the man returning the paint he had put into his bag and simply leaving the store. Still, with the Katachan-sized blade in his bag, the attempted theft was not considered serious enough by the staff to warrant calling the police, but it was decided to put in a call to the shopping centre security office to let them know about the man with the huge knife wandering around so they could keep an eye out for him, while the store manager quizzed the staff member about what exactly he had thought he was going to do with an entire sack of sand. Regards, Steve. That sounds like such a Games Workshop response to shit that's going wrong in the store. Yes, like gives him like a sly wink, and they return with like an actual bag of sand. You're like, no, Dave, no, not a whole bag of sand, mate. Just give me, and never mind, Dave. Never mind. Just sell the Tyranids, Dave. Never mind. Just forget about it. Yeah. So this was actually well handled. I will say that. I've only ever had one guy come into the store who was mildly almost like that, and it was actually window cleaner. So this guy cleaned all the windows down the street where my Games Workshop was, and I told him the week before I don't need my windows cleaned because I clean them myself, you know. And he said, okay, yeah, man, yeah, no worries. Anyway, I'm serving somebody at the counter one day, and this is literally the next week. He comes along and he's cleaning my windows, and I'm like, shit, I can't go up there and stop him. I'm talking to a customer. I'm actually getting a sale. So I ring through the sale, and he comes back in just as I'm finished, and the customer have walked out the store, and he says, "Yeah, that'll be 20 quid." I'm like, "No, it won't." What? Well, it won't be 20. It won't be 20 quid, will it? Because I told you last week I don't want my windows cleaned. You've actually done a worse job than I do when I clean them. I don't want my windows cleaned. I told you last week. So no, you didn't. That's what he said. He said, "No, you didn't." Yes, I did. I literally told you last week. We had this conversation by that display table over there. You had the red bucket, right? You got a blue bucket today. You had a red bucket at the time. I can tell you what you were wearing, mate. You were here, and we had that conversation this time last week when you tried to clean my windows, and I said I didn't need them cleaning. Right? He then pulled the race card on me, which, you know, normal, and said, you know, this is ridiculous. You know, why aren't you paying me? Like, this is some, like, you know, do you think I'm some sort of slave or something? And I said, no, because I don't want you to work for me. That's the opposite of slavery. Are you fucking stupid? That's the opposite of what you're describing. I don't want you cleaning my windows. I don't want you cleaning anything in my store. I do it myself. I'm not paying you for something I asked you not to do. Right? Anyway, he is getting very aggressive, but in the end, thankfully, he just left the store, and he threw a sponge at my window. Brilliant. Excellent. And then he just walked off. And just like, you know. Anyway, charming anecdote aside about window cleaners. Salt of the earth and all that. But, you know, don't clean my windows if I've asked you not to. Oh. 1 sec, let me just take a drink. If I sound like I'm struggling through this, because I am. Just a quick note on the fellow who wrote Confessions of a Power Gamer. I'll probably read that one next time. In fact, no, bollocks to it. I'll read it now. I'm just going to have to psych myself up. It's a long one. Right. Confessions of a Power Gamer. Let's do this. Hi, North. For nostalgic reasons, I'm going to call myself Wolflord for this story. Even though it makes sense, it makes me cringe a little bit. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Worst chapter ever. I guess I should start with a little bit of input about myself for context. I'm 37, German, so please excuse any errors in my writing. A teacher like yourself, and used to be heavily into tabletop games, role-playing games, etc. From the late 90s until the early 2010s. Back in the day, I loved Warhammer Fantasy Battle, which unfortunately got pretty much deleted, playing mostly Chaos and Lizardmen. I never really got into 40k, but like any true nerd, I collected all army books and codexes from every army of both systems. Wow, okay. So, concerning editions, I was pretty knowledgeable in terms of rules and units and Warhammer Fantasy Battles, with edition 4 to 4 plus 5 and 40k edition 3. Now, a little bit of spoilers ahead. I am not the hero of the story, nor am I the victim, but preferably the bad guy. So forgive me, Northern, for I have power gamed. A lot. At the time Warhammer Fantasy Battles Edition 4 was around, it was well known as Hero Hammer, since it had so many ridiculously powered hero models and insanely strong magical items. One example would be an armor rune for dwarves that raised the toughness of the wearer of said armor to a 10. Now, keep in mind that in fantasy, there are very few units with a strength of 8+, so this one dwarf would end up being actually unkillable for many armies. Since according to the old system of wounding, you needed at least a strength of 8 to be able to wound him on a 6. So you need to roll a 6 on a d6 to even wound the guy. And that's if you had an 8 strength. Now, this should make you feel a lot better about modern day 40k, guys, when you think, how much easier it is to have, if your strength is above my toughness, it's 3+. If it's, 4+, sorry. If it's the same, or I think it's the same, yeah. If it's the same as my toughness, it's 4+. If it's above my toughness, it's 3+. And if it's double my toughness, it's or above, it's 2+. Shit like that. So easy. So easy. And you just reverse it for things the other way around. Dead easy. I'm sure I got that wrong, but, that's just how I remember it off the top of my head. Now, since I always enjoyed both showering and working out, I never looked the part. But I was in anything but appearances a true neckbeard, and a bad power gamer who would exploit stuff like that to the max. But with 5th edition, GW got pretty much rid of most of these absurdly strong individuals, so my eyes started to linger. And I ended up falling in love with another game that is, unfortunately, all but forgotten nowadays. The name of that game was Confrontation by the company Rackham, and it was a skirmish-based game with around 10 to 20 minis in competition format, which I liked a lot, since I was extremely lazy when it came to painting. Necromunda and Mordheim never really became popular in Germany, so here we go. Confrontation was of French origin. The minis were all made out of metal, which had more lead and was much softer than GW's white metal and allowed for more details. In my opinion, the minis were much better designed with much more detail than anything GW put out back in the day. I included some pictures for reference, most importantly the mountain giant at the end. Yeah, some of these are really cool. I really like them. My most favourite armies back then were the 2 Wolfen armies, since back in the day, they were the only armies consisting entirely of ogre-level monsters, which, unlike ogres, were also extremely skilled warriors with a more elfish vibe to them, having both a nature-loving wood elf-style faction and a more dark elf-style faction. Yeah, so these models are... I looked at them and I actually thought they were from, like, a few years ago. That's how good they are. So, they're really cool. Google them if you can. It was because of this army that I called myself Wolflord in forums at the time. Ah, that's okay then, I'll let you off. To this day, there is nothing like the Wolfen in Warhammer Fantasy or 40k. Only the Custodes may come close, since they are extremely elite and fast. Now, since I always liked big monsters and strong characters, there was one thing about Confrontation that I always disliked, which was their system of wounds. To make things easy, any model would only have 5 stages of being wounded. 1 is stunned, 2 is wounded, 3 is severely wounded, 4 is critically wounded, and 5 is dead. On any new wound would either increase the level of being wounded by 1 or replace it if it was 2 stages above. However, by adding up, they all counted as 1 more wound, not more. Okay, fair enough. Now, the rest of the fighting rules were more complicated than those of GW, but in terms of wounds, pretty much any unit could have at least inflict a normal wound on any other model, even with strength and toughness that were far apart, so pretty much the opposite of Warhammer Fantasy Battles 4th edition. Basically, if your awesome monster got hit often enough, there's a good chance that the goblins would take it down. To make things worse, the wounding system used 2 dice. Whenever you rolled a double, this would mean 1s equals a fail, no effect, 2s is stunned, 3s is wounded, 4s is severely wounded, 5s is critically wounded, and double 6s is dead, straight dead. And in this case, it was automatic, so strength and toughness did not matter at all. Wow, okay. Sorry, had a little cough. This system basically kept my power gaming about big monsters and characters in check, even though I had some successes with very elite lists and minis, like the bad armoured the Wolfen in Picture 3. Now, some things did change with the release of a new edition of Confrontation. That was indeed to pave the way for there to be full-size battle games aimed to dethrone Warhammer, called Ragnarok. With this edition, we saw the release of an even bigger and tougher monsters, like the brand new Mountain Giant, the biggest mini so far, and ironically part of the Dwarven army. Okay. The Mountain Giant had basically 1 extra wound, which did not change too much, but also reduced any incoming wound by 1 level. Once I read these new rules of that model online, I realised that this was a game changer. The reason was, there was a big difference in the possibility of smaller units to go to the necessary level of severe wound with 1 strike, which would render the Mountain Giant completely immune to anything most models in a tournament format could possibly dish out. Since stuns did not stack, that meant he could not be killed at all. But what about those nasty doubles, you may ask? Well, the Dwarves of Confrontation actually had a solution for that in the form of a prayer that made 1 unit immune to all doubles. And I should add, while spells and Confrontation could be countered or dispelled, prayers could not, and were permanent. Wow. So basically they've nuked their own system with this rule change. Where have you heard that before? As you can imagine, a big fat grin started to form on my face, as I realised that with the indestructible dwarf from Warhammer Fantasy Battles Edition 3 had come back, in form of a far cooler giant, no less. Now, as I explained, there were these pretty popular Wolfen armies that contained very few hard-hitting wolf ogres, which were strong enough to take a mountain giant down. However, I knew that this army was not too popular in tournament format because the small number of minis made it hard to get objectives. Of course, I anticipate that this might change to counter said mountain giant, especially since you were allowed to have a second list for tournaments. However, there was an important tournament coming up right after the release of my new favourite walking fortress. Now, back in the day, it took some weeks or months for Confrontation minis, which were released in France, to hit the stores here in Germany. However, according to the rules of tournaments, anything that had official rules was fair to be played in tournaments from the get-go. Being the nasty power gamer that I was, I did not hesitate to use my parents' credit card to order that beautiful beast directly from Paris, and lo and behold, he just about made it in time. So, I stopped painting my minis a while ago, just threw in some dwarves around the big guy, as I never played this army before, and just needed them for the aforementioned objectives. To this day, I remembered the faces of my opponents when I arrived at the tournament. "What's in that big box, Wolf?" they asked. I could barely contain my fat grin. You know that big monsters that can still be one-shot or hacked into pieces by little guys in Confrontation, right? Some dude said, and of course I chuckled, like a little kid. One of the guys knew me a bit better, and was also very well informed about new releases, and said, "Oh, I have a very bad feeling about this." Okay. Once the giant was out of the box, those guys became pretty quiet pretty fast, since they realised that there was absolutely nothing within their armies that could even scratch the big guy at all. Once the prayer was successful, the wise guy just nodded and went, "Straight from Paris, eh? Well played. Did not even have the smallest chink in the armour." Yeah, did not even leave the smallest chink in the armour. Looking back, I of course regret pretty much ruining the tournament, especially for one newcomer who, instead of rolling and rolling for wounds against me, who insisted on rolling and rolling for wounds against me, even though I explained to him multiple times that besides one of his characters, no model in his army could harm the giant, who of course smashed said character in one blow. Now listening to your channel while playing League TFT got me reminiscing about those days, so I wanted to share this story. Confrontation is long gone. The company who went off the rails by turning low quality pre-painted plastic models for kids. But to this day, I still get the massive steam tank I won on that tournament, which was also intended for Ragnarok, which ultimately never really made it into the market here. Well, maybe I will come back to the world of the tabletop. Those custodies look pretty neat, and with the Primarchs coming back, there'll be no shortage of potentially overpowered characters, I guess. So it might be time for the Rough Lord to return. Yeah, saying that, your Angron was just revealed today, so, you know, that's going to be pretty cool going forwards. And I will get into that on Monday. I will talk about Angron on Monday. I can't today because my voice is about to cave in on itself. But I have one more story before I leave. Before I leave you for the weekend. Because I will get to that 40-minute mark, even if it kills my voice. 1 second. Right. So, Dave is a good friend of mine who does some work with me away from the channel. So Dave says, "Hello, great exiled lord of the north." And you know he's a friend because he's being overly, you know, I hope my balls taste nice. That's all I'm saying. No one's ever fucking greeted me like that before. Okay, hello, great exiled lord of the north. Do you know what? I want you all to say that from now on, because that felt really nice. Listened to a really awesome story sent in by your followers has left me wanting to share some of my own. I hope that you find this particular event amusing, and it'll probably leave you shaking your head a little bit. So, we have all encountered that one guy, the one who brings a Death Star unit to a friendly game. That used to be me, by the way. This is Exile talking. In 7th edition, I used to have Caldor Drago and 9 Paladins. It was just funny. So we've all encountered that one guy who brings us a Death Star unit to a friendly game. I wouldn't do it to a friendly game, no. Who closely follows the meta, in which to crush all beneath his boots of raw or unfuckable might. Yep, whose armies are barely primed if even a lick of paint touches them. That guy, I guess. I am, of course, describing the much despised Power Gamer. Enter Barry, name changed for anonymity. I'm sure that images of an overweight, sweaty neckbeard come to mind, but surprisingly, Barry was in good health and was fairly good looking. Yeah, they come in all shapes and sizes, man. They come in all shapes and sizes. He had a wide catalogue of armies, all in various stages of build and primer. However, he had one fully painted army that he took to play tournaments. His Tyranids. At this time, about 5th edition, Tyranids were hot. They were a steamroller of screaming death, flattening any unfortunate army that would dare face their slobbering maws. I hate Tyranids. I prefer tech to biology, hence my favourite army being Necrons, okay? Barry would bring his ultimate super killy army list and annihilate almost all who would stand against him, driving many players to outright avoid gaming with him, the fear of a humiliating loss always fresh in their minds. I myself have encountered this RAPE train that was Barry's Tyranids. Pitting my Necrons against his biological horrors seemed like such a good idea at the time. Necrons were in a fairly good place, having just received a new codex and some new models. But as a returning player, my mind was addled and rusted as the very forces I commanded. I watched my army systematically taken apart and reduced into nothing more than raw materials used to make microchips. My overlord, dismayed at the tabling he had just received, found himself getting bent over his own hero rock before being violently violated. So much so that he was finally reanimated on his tomb world. He walked with a permanent limp and had developed a speech impediment. It was tragic. All the while, Barry would say how good at the game he was, spouting familiar catchphrases of, "It was so close, fuck off, you nearly had me there, eat shit, let's do another, no, not bloody likely." I'm not bitter about the whole thing. I'm not bitter about the whole thing, honest. It taught me a valuable lesson. Don't be a bellend when friendly gaming. Bring something fluffy and fun. Now, to the moment that many of us had been waiting for. I'd walked into my LEN local GW. In-store gaming was allowed at this time, and believe it or not, 3D printed models were not banned. I say this because Barry had some. There were rules in the NIDS Codex for a drop pod-like unit that had no model, and hadn't for some time. So Barry acquired his own. It was around turn 3 when I made my appearance, joining a small group of Barry's previous victims, and saw Barry playing against the new guy. I walked over to the table, expecting this poor sap to be getting his army set upon by tentacled monstrosities, and enjoying the spectacle that many would contribute to a 1980s hentai movie. It was a young lad of no more than 15, who I will call 3B for his big brass balls, and I brought in his semi-painted beautiful blue armoured boys, the Ultramarines. The sight before me looked grim. Tyranids everywhere, Barry's fleshy death controlled most of the board, but I noticed the Ultramarines were not just dying. 3B was rolling so hot, his dives were practically melting the battle board. Nothing was being killed by Barry's usual arse reaming, and the return fire reduced his horde significantly. Barry was looking flustered, wringing his hands as his shots whiffed, his charges fell short, and any close combat he managed to engage in fell to naught. His once mighty Tyranids were bumbling around like stoners, raiding a kitchen for a snack and finding nothing but a jar of mayonnaise. The part I remember most was when Barry attempted to target a tactical squad, who were embarked on a rhino with a psychic power from a zoanthrope. A zoanthrope that had landed in a drop pod alpha strike. I cannot remember which power it was, but he declared that it could target the guys inside. The manager, who I can personally attest to being a legend, overheard this stretching of the rules and called Barry out on his bullshit. No, you can't target something embarked in a transport. But it says I can target whatever is on the board, says Barry. Those Marines are not on the board, they are in the Rhino. From my own experience, Barry is a rules Nazi. He would call you out on a slight misinterpretation or misunderstanding of the rules, unless it benefited him, of course. So seeing him get the same treatment was sweet music to my ears. Despite a back and forth with the manager, and a firm denial on Barry's lips, he acquiesced. Looking defeated, Barry passed his psychic test, but couldn't harm the Rhino. His face was turning a decided shade of red, as more of his attacks failed. Acidic gobs were ineffective against the polish of the Ultramarines' armour, and rending claws were blunted on the mighty dicks of the Tyranids' cobalt would-be victims. This sounds like actual Ultramarines in the lore as well. And for some reason, nothing's working against them. 3B took his turn, disembarking his tactical squad, taking aim and firing at the zoanthrope. We knew they were weak against the crack missile, superheated plasma, and mass reactive shells. The zoanthrope went down faster than a $2 hooker in the Las Vegas strip mall. I watched in amazement as a Carnifex received a proctology exam from a dreadnought. The diagnosis was dire, and the Carnifex died on the operating table, arse in the air, screaming. I never thought I would see a grown man cry over a game of toy soldiers, but it happened. Barry, a 30-something adult, stormed out of the GW, red-faced and tears streaming, leaving a somewhat shell-shocked 3B wondering what the hell had just happened. As Barry left and went up the street, we victims of Barry's violations started patting 3B on the back and began laughing. If I remember right, we laughed till we were as red-faced as the tear-streaked Barry. Barry eventually returned and packed his army, cradling them as if they were his newborn babies. Gave a half-hearted handshake and left, the evidence of tears still marked upon his face. I often wish we had brought goblets with us to watch Barry's tears and quaff them with 3B, like fallen Vikings in Valhalla. I did see Barry after this, and that event was never spoken about again. Thanks for reading this, mate. I hope that the victims of that guy also get to witness the fall of a titan in such a spectacular fashion. Cheers, Dave. Yeah, I mean, that sounded very, very... And do you know what I like about that story? It wasn't like a getting around the rules kind of story. It wasn't an over... You weren't trying to out that guy. Do you know what I mean? It was the game, naturally, as a dice game, you know, reaming somebody, as happens every now and again. Finally, it happened to the one guy who deserved it the most. And some people, like yourself, were actually there to see it, which is really, really, really cool. And I love it. That's really cool. You know, and it also really does play into Ultramarines too. I love that. That the Ultramarines aren't even aware of how, like, game-breakingly, you know, lore-breakingly untouchable they are. So that is it for today's Hobby Nightmares. Please head over to Composite Games if you'd like to support them and me on the channel. And if you like what I do, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out a lot. You know, the growth on the channel is slowing somewhat. So not to be, you know, I'm actually quite comfortable the way it is now, to be honest with you. Because I like the fact that I get to speak to most of you. But at the same time, more growth would always be nice. So if you wanted me to grow as a channel, then spread the love, get out there and tell people to subscribe to me and things like that. Aside from that, I love you all a long time. Have a lovely weekend. I'm very sorry that we haven't done more videos this week, but with the cold being here, I've not really been able to do very much. Yesterday, I was pretty much bedridden. You know, managed to do a few calls, but that's about it. So, next week should be a lot busier in terms of videos, because on Monday we'll be doing the Angron reveal, where we're going to be talking about Angron and what the hell's going on with him. On Tuesday we'll be doing more Hobby Nightmares. Wednesday more Hobby Nightmares. Thursday we'll be doing a video on the 2 missing legions, and on Friday we'll be doing yet another Hobby Nightmares, because we're getting a few in now. If you have any Hobby Nightmares, then please send them in. I'm not running out, but I'm on my last 10 now, so send them in, keep me topped up, and I'll be there for you with more Hobby Nightmares next week. Have a wonderful weekend, guys. Stay safe. Love you all a long time. Have a good one.